You know, every single year, literally thousands upon thousands of dollars in college grants, scholarships, and crucial financial aid just vanish. They're left completely on the table. And why? Well, usually it comes down to entirely avoidable FAFSA mistakes, missing a deadline, plugging in the wrong financial information, or just plain getting overwhelmed by the process. Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are building your high-stakes roadmap for college affordability, because whether you're a first-generation student trying to file this alone, or you're a parent navigating this bureaucratic maze for the very first time, understanding the 2026-27 FAFSA can literally be the difference between graduating with crushing student debt or graduating with actual financial freedom. So let's get right to work.
Now, really quickly before we dive into the weeds, I do need to give a brief professional disclaimer. This explainer is strictly for educational and informational purposes only. It is not financial, legal, or tax advice. FAFSA rules, financial aid formulas, deadlines, eligibility requirements, and government policies can and honestly often do change over time. So please always verify the specifics with your schools, qualified professionals, and official government sources like studentaid.gov.
All right, here's our roadmap for today. First, why FAFSA matters and types of aid. Then, the deadline timeline. Third, preparation and dependency. Fourth, our step-by-step filing guide. Fifth, common costly mistakes. And finally, number 6, next steps after submission.
Section 1, Why FAFSA Matters and Types of Aid.
$7,395. That is the maximum federal Pell Grant for the 2026-27 academic year. And the most crucial point to remember here is that this is free money. You do not have to pay a single cent of it back. But there's a catch. You only get it if you actually submit the free application for federal student aid, otherwise known as the FAFSA. It is your absolute non-negotiable gateway for federal grants, state aid, and even institutional help directly from your chosen college.
Let's clear up some financial aid jargon really quick so we're all on the same page. On one side of the coin, you have grants, like that Pell Grant we just mentioned, and work-study, which basically provides part-time jobs for students. Think of this as free money or earned wages. You don't owe this back at all. On the flip side, you have student loans. This is borrowed money from the government that absolutely must be repaid, and with interest. The FAFSA is the master key that unlocks all of these options. But obviously, our ultimate goal today is to help you maximize that free money.
Section 2, The Deadline Timeline.
So priming is quite literally everything here, mostly because a ton of financial aid is awarded on a first-come, first-served basis. When the money's gone, it's gone. Here's your 3-tiered timeline to live by. First, the FAFSA opens on October 1st, 2025. After that, you have a bunch of varying state and college priority deadlines. And finally, the absolute drop-dead federal cutoff is June 30th, 2027. Let me be super clear. Do not wait for that June 2027 cutoff. If you drag your feet until then, sure, federal loans might still be sitting there, but the state and college grant money will likely be long gone.
And if you're wondering why early is so much better, well, state deadlines are all over the map. They vary wildly. Did you know that states like Connecticut prioritize aid by mid-February? Or that Missouri's priority date is February 2nd? Filing early is absolutely non-negotiable if you want the best possible financial aid package. Seriously, set an alarm, mark your calendars right now so you aren't scrambling and losing out later.
Section 3, preparation and dependency. Okay, getting organized before you even open the application is basically the secret to keeping your sanity. I highly encourage you to pause the explainer right here and jot these down. This is your exact, no surprises document checklist. You're going to need an FSA ID account for everyone filling out a part of the form. You need social security numbers. Crucially, for the 2026-27 school year, you need what they call prior year taxes. That means your 2024 federal tax returns and W-2s. Go hunt those down today. You'll also need your current bank statements, any records of untaxed income, think things like child support, and the school codes for up to 20 colleges you're currently considering. Gather the whole shebang first, and you'll thank yourself later.
So whose financial information actually goes into this system? Well, let's break down dependency status because the federal government has a very, very strict definition here. Listen, even if a student pays their own rent, works full-time, and completely supports themselves, they might still be legally classified as a dependent for FAFSA purposes. Generally speaking, if you're under 24, unmarried, and have no dependents of your own, you are considered a dependent student, which means you absolutely require parent information on your form. On the flip side, if you are 24 or older, married, a veteran, or have legal dependents, then you are independent and you don't need your parents' details.
Now, this brings us to a newer term you're going to see absolutely everywhere on the new form, the contributor. Simply put, a contributor is anyone required to provide information and a signature on the FAFSA. That could be the student, a spouse, a biological parent, or even a step-parent. And parents, let me ease your mind right now. Being named as a contributor does not mean you are legally signing your life away or agreeing to pay the college tuition out of pocket. Not at all. You're simply providing the necessary financial background so your student can unlock their federal aid.
Section 4. Step-by-step filing guide.
The good news is the whole thing has been simplified down to a maximum of 46 questions, and here is your foolproof step-by-step walkthrough. Step 1. Create those studentaid.gov accounts to get your FSA IDs. Step 2. Complete the Student Personal Circumstances section, which basically determines that dependency status we just talked about. Step 3. Provide IRS consent. Step 4. Enter your financials and your family size. And Step 5. Review, sign, and submit. Pro tip here, we strongly recommend that the student starts their own FAFSA, completes their specific section first, and then sends an email invite to their parent contributors to finish their part. It just keeps the whole process so much cleaner.
Now, pause, because there is a massive, absolute must-know rule for that third step. Providing IRS data transfer consent is mandatory for all contributors. Listen closely. Even if you didn't earn enough money to actually file taxes in 2024, every single contributor must click the box to provide consent to transfer federal tax info. If anyone refuses to provide that consent, the student instantly loses eligibility for federal student aid. Period. End of story. No exceptions, so just make sure everyone clicks the box.
Section 5. Common costly mistakes.
All right, let's talk about the traps, the simple errors that cause families to bleed thousands of dollars. Take a look at this incredibly common, realistic scenario. A student says, well, my parents are divorced. I didn't really know which one was supposed to fill out the form, so we just guessed. Please don't guess. Guessing can cause massive delays or trigger a super lengthy verification audit. The new federal rule states that the parent who provided the most financial support to the student over the last 12 months must be the contributor on the FAFSA. It is no longer just automatically the parent the student lived with the most. That is a huge change, so keep it in mind.
Here's another super common one. I didn't list the transfer school I was considering because, honestly, I wasn't 100% sure yet. Remember when we said the FAFSA allows you to list up to 20 schools? Use them. List every single school you are even remotely considering. If you leave a school off your list and then decide to transfer or change your mind a few months down the road, that new school won't have any of your data, and that can severely delay your financial aid package, right when you need it the absolute most.
Okay, now for a huge I had no idea moment. Notice the specific asset reporting exemption. Family farms and small businesses with under 100 employees do not currently count as assets on the FAFSA. This is massive. It's a huge relief for small business owners, and it can drastically protect your aid eligibility. The formula is looking at your wealth, sure, but if your family farm or small business fits this description, do not overreport your assets. Keep that business value off the form if you qualify for the exemption.
Section 6. Next steps after submission.
So once you hit submit and the whole thing processes, the system spits out what's called your Student Aid Index, or SAI. This is the magic number that colleges use to figure out exactly how much financial need you have. And here's a really fascinating update to the system. To help the lowest income families maximize their aid, this formula can actually drop below zero, all the way down to negative 1,500. So the lower your SAI number is, the higher your eligibility goes for need-based aid, like that maximum Pell Grant we talked about earlier.
So, what happens next? Here's your post-submission roadmap. First, you'll receive an email with your FAFSA submission summary. Read it carefully. Review that SAI number. Now, if you suddenly realize you misspelled a name, or misreported your household size, or made some other honest mistake, don't panic. You can simply log back into studentaid.gov to correct your FAFSA online. It's not locked in stone. Ultimately, the colleges you listed will receive all this data, and they, not the Department of Education, will be the ones sending you your official financial aid award letters. Which really leads us to a massive final thought. Let's say you've done the hard work. You gathered all the documents, you navigated the new rules, you dodged the common traps, and you successfully submitted your 2026-27 FAFSA. Awesome. But when those award letters actually start rolling into your inbox, do you genuinely know how to evaluate and compare them side by side to avoid hidden student debt? Because figuring out the true bottom line cost of attendance after all that aid is applied is a whole new puzzle, and it's exactly what you'll need to master next. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and happy filing.